Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, January 8th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and everyone in Buffalo is waiting for tomorrow morning.
Hi, I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm rooting for the Bills this year.
And I'm Eklund. Appreciate Kevin's facial hair changes every show. You see him now. That's pretty good. I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world with far less tanking talk today. We're not going to talk about the Eagles or anything. We're going right into it because we got news. And that news starts off with, the NHL, always trying to be like the other leagues, decided that, they would have a COVID scare today, it sounds like. So,
two teams.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, first the Dallas Stars reported that they were shutting down camp, and originally they didn't really say why. Then the Columbus Blue Jackets came out and said similar, that they were for precautionary reasons. We're going to not have their first practice, and they're canceling their second practice. Just a few minutes ago, the NHL released a statement regarding the Stars. 6 players and 2 staff members have tested positive for COVID. They're self-isolating and following protocols. And according to the report, the facilities for the team have been closed effective immediately. Will remain closed for several days, and their season will not start until Tuesday, January 19th, with the opening day being the 13th. So they're going to miss the first week for precautionary reasons.
Okay, well, there you go. And we knew this was going to happen. This is going to be part of our fun reporting this year, all year long. I have a feeling, but I'm glad they're being being cautious. Obviously, we're not in a bubble anymore. But I think that's what's very, very apparent by this, right?
Right.
And I think and Texas is a state that but the one interesting about this is one of the states, right, that's going to allow fans, right? That's a little crazy, don't you think? I mean, I don't know. Just we already talked about that before. We don't have to get into it again. We have so much to talk about today. I don't want to talk about COVID. But let's get in. What else we got going on, Mike?
Let me just say this about this whole situation. I think it does bear repeating what you said with regard to, this is going to be very similar to the NFL.
Yes.
And the NFL made it through. There was a lot of cussing about, what games were delayed and all that. But you know what? We're going to play the playoffs. We're going to go to the Super Bowl. It's going to work out. Was it ideal? No. Mm-hmm. But we got to watch that. And I think that the NHL fans just, the fact that we're going to spend 3 minutes on it is about right. I mean,
I think that's it. Honestly,
I think that we just have to accept that this is going to happen. Now, the only difference, and this is, again, we should, continually point this out, is, in the NFL, you're always impacting usually one game,
right?
Unless the guy, had symptoms. We're going to impact multiple games when our guys get tested. So, we're going to have things like this. There'll be, teams are going to go a week without playing probably, and they're going to lose 2 guys. And if everyone's smart, the one thing I've pointed out, I've been talking to with the people around the NFL, and they all laugh about it, and then they say, this is a really good idea. In the NFL, we lost players because they were in team meetings together, and they didn't wear masks. That's what happened to the Broncos and their quarterback situation. The NHL teams always have power play meetings.
Right.
I would suggest they do those by Zoom because you would hate to have your entire power play wiped out because you were in a meeting together and then somebody tests positive.
Well, I was just on the Leafs conference call, and they asked Joe Thornton about the concern about what just happened with the Stars. He says, in our meetings we're all wearing masks and we're all sitting 6 to 8 feet away from each other. So that's what for the here and the now. That's what you're going to have to do. And somebody in the chat was like, they had heard this report, and they were basically saying, just cancel the seat. I mean,
that's what.
Will you please stop? Because
we're all in a world right now where there's one thing that we should print on everybody's T-shirt that you got to wear around, and then that should be the simple saying, you gotta try.
The sky is falling.
Where we are right now with everything we're doing in life is when you ask yourself, are you gonna you got to try. That's the idea. You got to try to find a way. You're not gonna do it the same way but you got to try it. You can't sit back and say, no, we're not going to have a season because it's pointless. No, you got to try. You got to try.
But go ahead, Mike.
No, and the NHL built this schedule to anticipate things like this. So, what is going to happen with the first 2 or 3 games that Dallas is playing? Well, those teams are coming to Dallas, or they're going to the other team's buildings multiple times, 2 or 3 times, with days in between. So all they're going to do is plug the one game in, and then that's how it's going to work. So, and that's why they have taxi squads. Now they're shutting down for a week, but if during the season this happens, that's what the taxi squad is for. Just like in practice squad with the NFL, they just call up more players.
Yeah. I was certainly for continuing on, and I agree with that about trying. You got to do all this, and you just have to accept that it's never going to be perfect. Yeah. However, you do need to, and I know Eck agrees with this, you got to walk the balance beam on this. Yeah. You do have to recognize that that we're in the middle of a surge in the and that we're not going to get vaccinations of any meaningful numbers until the playoffs started. Right. I have concerns about fans in the building, and all of those. Obviously Florida has been marching to the beat of its own drummer right from the beginning regarding COVID. Their governor sees it differently. Texas is another state where they do things differently, and of course Arizona. Now, what's interesting about those two, and I just saw those teams come out today, the 4 of them. I mean, we all suspected it would be Florida, but the one thing that struck me is there 2 teams that need fans and revenue more than the Arizona Coyotes and the Panthers.
Yeah,
I almost feel like even though this seems somewhat dangerous to me. Especially given the number of senior citizens that live in Florida and Arizona. I understand why they want to do it. We're looking at economic fallout where the richest teams will have the least amount of losses. Right. And the teams that are often struggling a little bit, they're going to have perhaps catastrophic losses. So,
my wife brought up an interesting thing, which I thought was funny. And then, they can't really do this because we still don't know how this disease works exactly. But she said, listen, with all the people in Texas and Florida that have gotten it, there should be some kind of stamp they can get on their ID card saying, I've already gotten it. So chances are lower maybe that I'll get it or transfer it again. Well, those fans should be allowed because there's a lot of people that have gotten it. I mean,
there's patient tracking. There's people being tracked basically by their phone right now when it comes to COVID. So
I think there might be a way. There might be a way that we can maybe at least be a little bit. I mean, these teams do need revenue, but maybe there's a way of trying a little bit harder and to figure out who the least likely people are to get it. Obviously, maybe there should be an age you have to be under 50 or under. Well, I don't know. There's certain things that you can do. Yeah. Perhaps. I don't know.
Ironically, this might be the only opportunity for the Florida Panthers to lead the league in attendance.
But All right, let's move on to our other story, Mike.
Yeah, the other story is, and again, we don't know a lot of information about what's going on here, but it started to sneak out yesterday regarding Corey Crawford with the New Jersey Devils. Now, he signed a 2-year, $10 million contract with the Devils. He was going to pair up with Mackenzie Blackwood. He's been absent from the last few days of practices, and now just a few minutes ago, the Devils come out and said he is taking a personal leave of absence, and it's an indefinite absence. So we don't know why. We can, and I'm not going to guess because that would be irresponsible. No. But it's something of a personal nature. So, but this leaves the Devils, Kevin, in a bad situation because now they're back to depending completely on Mackenzie Blackwood. They really, I'll look at their depth chart, but I don't believe the third string goaltender is anybody of major consequence. So, this leaves them in an ugly situation right now.
Yeah, and they could have been one of the more improved teams when you look at the moves they make. I think we all love the Murray, acquisition. They've got some really good, young players that are coming in as well. And I thought I'm not there are some people that believe they could get into the playoffs. I'm not among them.
Yeah.
But I liked the direction they were headed. But without Crawford, he stabilized their goaltending. We like Blackwood, but I think you're in this season in particular, adding Crawford really made that team far more competitive. So, we'll have to see. I mean, this could be short term, and I think you're right on. We don't want to speculate, but you just got to hope that he can come back, and whatever the issue is, it won't impair his ability to be, a top flight goalie. Like, he played really well last year.
Yeah.
So.
He really did. And also remember that there were a lot, we'll talk about it as we get into our Central Division thing today. There were a lot of Blackhawks that weren't very happy with them letting him go. A lot of Blackhawk players. And when you talk to Blackhawks writers and who watch that team all the time, they'll tell you that, they say it was pretty amazing how many times they would go into the locker room after a game, and it would be said, the players would say, well, if it wasn't for Crawford tonight, we would not have had a chance. Like they said, that was really honestly a reality of their last year. So I don't know. This is so that without Crawford, and we'll talk about the Blackhawks for sure. But I really part of my like wacky predictions about New Jersey, and I was saying New Jersey's going to battle for a playoff spot and all this stuff, and that definitely was. And I said me saying New Jersey was going to finish ahead of the Capitals in my wacky predictions had to do with Crawford and Blackwood being a combination there that I saw as being a solid duo. Without a duo in the NHL right now, it's trouble.
Well, and looking at the Devils' depth chart, more than likely the backup would be Scott Wedgwood, who I've seen a few times play with their AHL team. I think he has a few games of NHL experience, but it's a big drop from Corey Crawford to Scott Wedgwood. So I think this hurts them a lot, and hopefully it's something that's short term, but we'll see.
Yeah. Speaking of, before we get into the breaking down the division. Another thing that I read on Twitter, just because I follow Henrik Lundqvist, is his surgery was successful, and I think that was really good news that people wanted to read about. And I have no idea whether he'll ever play again. You would think because of his age, he would at least consider retirement even more than he was before, but you never know. I mean, maybe this is what fuels him through his rehab to get him going. But he said it went well, and he's at the Cleveland Clinic, which is world renowned, and I'm sure he'll get the best possible care there.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was very happy for that. And I talked to Russ this morning, and he says if anybody is going to try to come back from this, it's Henrik Lundqvist. I would hope. I wish him the best. If he wants to try, fine. And if he makes it back, that would be fantastic. But he's had an unbelievable career. He's a class act. So if it ends here, he ends as a lifetime Ranger, never playing a game for anybody else. And I think a definite Hall of Famer.
True.
Yeah, for sure. He is a Hall of Famer, and it oftentimes, and I have been on the Hockey Hall of Fame selection committee. I had a term, a tour of duty there, and I'm currently on the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame. And always what comes up is, did you win? And I would say this about Lundqvist. Obviously, he did not win the Stanley Cup, but I don't think it'll be a factor with him. He won in international competition at the Olympics, the World Championships, and it was generally accepted throughout his career that he was one of the elite goalies in the league at all time.
Right.
So I think he is, to me, he's first ballot. When it's his time, you never know who's going to be up, and that plays a role in it. But I would think he goes immediately into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely too. I think he is instant. All right, so let's get to this division. Can I just say an overview of this division? A couple things that I feel about this. This division is weak in goal. In general, I'm just gonna say that they're in general compared to the other divisions, they're weak in net. But they also there were many times I was writing a preview, like I put a team at number 7 or whatever, and I'd write the preview. And as I'm writing the preview, I'm like, you know what? Nah, this team feels more like 6. And I write, and I'm like, this team feels more like 5. When you're writing this, you're moving them around. It's like, my dogs are making me nuts. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, let's start off with this, and we'll see where we go. And it's funny because I sit here and work all day, and they're quiet until they hear Mike's voice, and then they realize that I'm on a podcast, and this is the time that they go nuts. My dog.
Yeah, sure. Blame me. Blame me.
I have two dogs, as people who watch my podcast know, and my dogs have 2 scheduled fights every day. One is at 6 o'clock at night. That's when they battle. But the other is whenever I'm on a podcast. Yeah. and they like to get like maybe about 5 feet away. And they're into Greco-Roman wrestling. They stand up and tear each other's legs down and until somebody gets mad.
Ours too. I saw my corgi dragging my Shih Tzu by the ear across the kitchen floor the other day.
Yeah.
What do you do about that? All right, let me let them out, and then we'll start this thing. But let's get into Mike. Mike, why don't you start us off with?
Yeah, I'll start where I think everybody's going to start. But I'll say this as an encouraging thing. Kevin, we did the West, and the West we're all in agreement that the 8th place team was the Arizona Coyotes, and I took the bold statement that they are the odds-on 31st place team in the league because without Taylor Hall, I mean, their goaltending is good, but they could end up trading Ekman Larson during the year. I think there's a sizable gap of talent with that team. Detroit is my pick for last place in this division. I actually don't think they're as bad as Arizona. I think with the additions that they made, the goaltending I think is fairly solid with Grice and Bernier, that they'll be last place, but they'll be better than they were last year.
Yeah, I might. I think I agree with your assessment for the most part. I think there's a chance. I don't know whether it's 20% or 30%, but I think there's a chance that they could be better than anyone's expected. Mm-hmm. When you look at their guys that they have up front, Mantha, Bertuzzi, Larkin, these are guys that can create points. They could have a season that was greater than they've had. And I think if Mantha could stay healthy, their defense, I think, will be much more competitive than it was last season, which when it was last year, they were just so porous at all times.
Sure.
And Bernier played well last season, and adding Grice gives them some stability. So, they probably are the last place team, but I think there is some hope. I know in Detroit, fans sort of feel it a little bit that, not that they're going to come in and win the Stanley Cup, but, that they could come in and if everything went right, they might surprise some people.
I'm with you guys. I mean, I think what's fascinating is, there's very rarely will you see a team that adds like 6 to 8 UFAs that might all be in the lineup. There's they made a lot of additions. They're not like, major players, but players that are going to be in their lineup. And I went through Bobby Ryan is going to be, I'm a huge Bobby Ryan fan, obviously, but I've talked about it before, but I think that I think John Merrill is going to be in their lineup. You talked about Grice. I think Troy Stetcher's in their lineup. Nemestikov is in their lineup. And I like Riley Barber too. I'm a big Riley Barber fan. I think Barber, if he gets the right amount of ice time, can really be something. I've always been pushing for teams to go out and give him a shot. So I think this is his first real shot. I like those additions. I mean, that's a lot of players. I mentioned 6. There's a couple more too, but those 6 I really feel like are there.
Well, I think the key here is that there are going to be players who, like Bobby Ryan, for example, he's on a 1-year contract.
Yeah,
he's got a lot to prove to see if he can come back from his off the ice issues, which are well chronicled. If he does play well, he's going to be somebody at the trade deadline, along with Glenn Denning, along with Filppula, along with Mark Stahl, that the Wings are going to be able.
Mark Stahl, that's trade, but yeah, there's another.
That the Wings are going to be able to flip at the deadline for players, prospects, or draft picks, and these players still want to continue in their career, so they're going to be motivated to play well. This isn't going to be we're going to go to a last place team and suck. I think they're going to want to actually play as well as they can to further their careers. And Bobby Ryan, I think, still has talent. And for a team that's tight up against the cap, he's $1 million cap hit. So I think that'll be a big motivation for a lot of these players.
Yeah.
One quick follow-up. Don't expect Glendening to be traded. Steve Eisman really likes Glendening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he just sees him as part of the leadership core. And I think he just thinks that he's still even though he's older than their young group, he still can be a part of it all. And he's so cheap. He's just over $1 million, and I don't see them moving him. And the only thing about this Red Wing team, I like all those guys. Like, I like them. It makes them more competitive. X, absolutely right. Mm-hmm. But it's this patchwork. Like, none of those guys are guys that you say, if he plays well, maybe he can be part of all this. No, all those guys, just as Mike laid out, are coming in, playing their bit, making them a little more competitive, and then they're moving on. They're placeholders. So that's the only thing. The real key to the Red Wings is, how do the guys that get their chance this year that that were drafted, how do they play?
Yeah. But there's always excitement with that many new players in a locker room. And that's like,
for sure. Yeah.
That changes. I mean, I've been around. It's almost like an expansion team. Like, they almost have like an expansion feel to them. Those guys. A lot of those guys are guys who are looking for a chance. Like, they remind me of Vegas Knight type players. Not the top line Vegas Knight players, but the third and fourth line original Vegas Knight players. And you're looking at that. That's what they are. So. Number 7, Kevin, who do you have as number 7? This was hard for me.
Well, I don't have it in front of me, and I wish I did. So why don't you guys start? I
got, and it'll be a shocker, and it has nothing to do with the news of today. But I have the Dallas Stars as the 7th place team in the division because
that is a shocker.
Because Tyler Seguin is out. He'll be out for probably most of the regular season. Yeah. Right now, Ben Bishop and Khudobin are both out now. I think Khudobin is supposed to be back before the beginning of the season. Now, in a roundabout way, the fact that they're not going to play for a week might be good news, because then he can be completely back to health. You're going to have the Stanley Cup hangover. Everything went right for them. And remember, this is a team that a guy like Pavelski, who's making $7 million, played terribly in the regular season and then bounced back and had a great playoff. Corey Perry, who had a terrible regular season, came back, bounced back in the playoffs. He's no longer there. So they're without their number 1 center. They're without their number 1 goaltender potentially. Their defense is really good, and I like some of their role players. But now all of a sudden, with Seguin out, your number 1 center is Pavelski, and your number 2 center is Rupe Hintz. I don't know how that works. So I think that plus the struggle of the Stanley Cup hangover may affect them enough that they will really have a tough season. So maybe they don't finish 7th, but I'm going to say they're going to finish.
Well, I put them at 5, Mike, but you know what? I did not know about the Seguin thing until you just said it there. And, that is definitely, I'll tell you why I put them at 5. And some of these, they really decided that they were going to go with the same team that they went with last year. I mean, they added Mark Pysyk, and
that was basically their only really.
And Julius Honka returns, it's like big return of Julius Honka. But I mean, these aren't like this isn't like the they're not exactly like there's not gonna be like photo, he's not gonna be like Beatles coming down the runway, off the airplane like, hi, Julius Honka's back. No, but I think the concept here is that is Kiviranta gonna be John Druce or not? Is he going to be another John Druce, or is he going to be more than that?
Chris Kontos,
I think I like him I like him a lot. I think he could be. I liked him before he went crazy, but I think that he had such a great thing. But here's the biggest thing for me with the Stars. This is a tougher division than they played in a while. Like, they haven't played in this is much harder than the Pacific Division, I feel. Go ahead, Kev.
Well, I was just going to throw in. I was able to. I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to find my list because the thing. What happens in my situation when you end up doing a lot of radios and podcasts, you don't want to get in the position of not remembering what you said before.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, I have found my list, and I have the Blackhawks at 7.
That's who I have at 7. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just because you can't start without Taves and Doc. And then have really unproven goaltending.
Right.
We just talked about Crawford. Last year they had both Crawford and Leonard until they moved Leonard. That gave them very consistent goaltending. Mm-hmm. That gave them a lot of confidence. And now, a guy like Dylan Strom might have to be the number 1 center. He's actually been a pretty good player since they picked him up from Arizona, but I don't know,
You step in after missing part of training camp because you're holding out, and now all of a sudden you're
Right.
as the number one center. So, yeah.
I think Dallas. I have Chicago the same reasons you do. I mean, I think that the loss of Crawford, it's going to be. I mean, they really. There's an interesting stat I saw when I was doing the Crawford research was that he was better. He had really good stats in games that they gave up more than 35 shots on goal, which is like an enormous number of shots on goal. And so you're looking at this unproven goaltending. They're going to get shelled, and it's like so really that's a bad combination. If Detroit beats out anybody, to me, it's the Blackhawks. I think Detroit could finish ahead of Blackhawks. It would be tough.
Well, I have the Blackhawks 6th.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't have them like challenging for a playoff spot for all the reasons that Kevin mentioned. I mean, we don't. The thing is, I expect Taves to come back at some point. And with Taves and Strome as your 1-2, before Dotch played really well in the playoffs, that was their 1-2 going into last season. So that's not bad. I will admit that I'm very skeptical that Colin Delia and Malcolm Subban are going to be able to withstand the season and have any kind of success. But I think if they get Taves back with Kane, and we know how great Kane is, and they have DeBrincat and a couple other really good players, that they'll have some success. I just think Dallas is going to struggle. But right now, I have Detroit in 8th, Dallas in 7th, and the Blackhawks at 6. What about you for 6, Ack?
For me, I'm moving the Stars from 5 to 6 based on the new information I've been given. So I'm officially moving them from. I had them in 5th. I'm moving them to 6th.
Okay.
And I was making that change on my blog as we were speaking there for a second. But yep, I'm definitely, because that injury is definitely huge. I'm with you, so I'm putting the Dallas Stars at number 6 as well. And Kevin, who you have at 6?
I got the Panthers. I believe in Bill Zito. I think that he's going to turn this around, but I think there's going to be an adjustment period here as they try to sort this all out. And there's obviously, to me, they have a similar problem to the Minnesota Wild, where they seem to have a lot of good parts, but they don't mesh well together.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be Bill Zito's mission, just like it's Bill Guerin's mission in Minnesota, to sort of figure all that out. Obviously, they have some very skilled players up front.
Right.
On defense, they got a guy like Keith Yandel, who is one of the better power play guys. They've got Ekblad, who's was a premium draft pick. They should be better than they are. Yeah. And to me, it all comes down to Bobrovsky. Yeah, you're stuck with Bobrovsky.
Yeah.
So if he plays like he did last year, they're going to be in trouble again. If suddenly he played like a Vezina Trophy winner that he has been, they could be better. But right now, I don't see them any higher than 6th.
Yeah, I've got them at 5. But to me, I'm with you for all the same reasons. I think that I do also. I've been a Bill Zito fan on here for a long time, as many people know. I think he's got the ability to build teams. He's very good at building teams. He was very good at building the AHL team up in the Sea Monsters up there in Cleveland.
Lake Erie Monsters, yeah.
Yeah, I mean they were dominant when he was there. I mean they ran through playoffs. He's very good at putting things together, and he's good at finding players that he I think he calls something like the seam players that fit between the other spots. Those are the players that he looks for. He brought 2 of them in from Columbus, in Wenberg and Nudavara. And then he also went out and he got Hornqvist, which I thought was a really sly pickup, because he's another player that's going to bring, like you said, Kevin. Who are they? Who are the Panthers? Well, I think he's trying to change that. Hornqvist, Gudas, 2 guys there, one on offense, one on defense, that are very much like the kind of guys that you want in your locker room. They are going to be guys that are going to have fun. Zito is when you listen to him, he was recently interviewed about Anton Lundell, and when Lundell's coming over, and he says, let him play over there in the season and have some fun for you. Has to come over here and do this. They're basically finish your season over there. He's really about, he wants players to enjoy themselves. He believes, and they believed in Columbus that a team that enjoyed themselves, like a loose team, was a better team.
Well, and that's similar, like Kevin said, that's sort of similar to what Minnesota's doing with Bill Guerin. Is trying to change the culture of the team after years of sort of mediocrity. Where I question is like I have no problem with the deal that he made with Pittsburgh, because I always thought Matheson was extremely overrated and overpaid. But he takes back Hornquist, who has been beaten over years with the Penguins. I don't know if he's got 3 years left. He's got 3 years left in his contract, but maybe this year he provides that verve that they've been missing. Mm-hmm. But again, it's going to come down to Barkov being one of the best forwards in the league, with Huberdeau scoring, and do they get anything out of Anthony Duclair, who they signed?
Play with those two, right?
Right. I mean, I don't know how long that's going to last based on Quenneville's history with Duclair in Chicago, but I think Gudas improves their defense, Nudavara improves their defense, but Gudas, we know his issues in terms of getting suspended and in terms of a lack of mobility, but he's a bottom pairing guy. He might provide. Again, that energy that's been missing with them for a number of years, but it may all come down to Bobrovsky and his ability to be consistent and win games. And if he does, then they make the playoffs.
One other thing that you have to factor in with the Panthers, and that is the relationship between Zito and Quenneville.
Yeah.
Like it is. I'm not suggesting for a minute that there's going to be a clash there, because I just have no idea. But Quenneville. He's not a big personality, but he's got a big aura, and he does things his way. And because he's been so successful, just because the GM brings in a player, he doesn't feel that means he has to play him. Now, in the real world, that's what often happens, that you work in harmony. If your GM brings in a player, that he expects you to give him a real good chance. But Quenneville doesn't usually operate like that. In Chicago, we saw him often, Bowman would bring someone in and he just would decide he didn't like them, and then he would never get out. So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic works. They're both really nice guys. So
he's a good communicator. And the other thing, they have a relationship going back to Chicago, because Zito, as an agent, was stationed in Chicago. So he was often around Chicago, and he was often around them. And I know for a fact that one of the I heard this, along the way, that when Zito was interviewing for various jobs, one of the jobs he interviewed for was the Flyers job. And this is when Fletcher got the job. And one of the things that the Flyers actually liked about him was his relationship with Quenneville, who at that time had not been hired by anybody, and the Flyers were thinking about him being a possibility. So based on that, I'm guessing that there is a relationship there between the two of them that will be sought. That will be who knows how far it goes, but I don't think with Duclair, I don't think that they bring him in without that being something that him knowing where Quenneville's at with him. I would guess, but who knows? We'll see. I mean,
the only thing I would say to that is, and who knows, but because you never know what unless you're on the inside. But Bowman and Quenneville got along too, but Quenneville didn't play Bowman's players.
Right. Oh yeah. No, exactly. I mean, it's a different thing when you get on the ice. Yeah, it's a different thing. It's a tough spot to be in for sure. Number 4. I have 5 for Florida. You have 5 for Florida, Mike. Where do you have Florida? We do have number 5, Mike. Kevin, who do you have for number 5?
Hold on. I know I got to go back.
Well, while Kevin's looking that up, I'll just give you Russ's picks he has Detroit in 8th, Chicago in 7th,
right,
Dallas in 6th, and Nashville in 5th.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got the Stars up here. Battling it out for a playoff spot all the way through it. And Sagan was the primary reason I have them down. I mean, they're still a very competitive team that plays a style that will be good in the playoffs. I'll say about them what I used to say about the Devils in the 90s. If they get in the playoffs, they could be effective.
Right.
And that's always seems ridiculous to say, but it's one thing to go through the grind and get in the playoffs, and it's another thing to be a playoff style team. So, I'm one thing I'm unsure of is whether Khudobin, now that he's anointed as the number 1, because Bishop will be hurt starting out the season. How will he handle that? He's really never been a number 1. I know how great he was in the playoffs. He's a great story. He's a great guy. But and in some respects, and I hate to say this because I really like Jim Nill and the job he's done, but it felt a little bit to me that the Stars overachieved in the postseason. That's another reason as well. I don't know whether they can maintain that consistency in the level, particularly with Sagan out. And Bishop's even though he can't seem to stay healthy, but he's a terrific goalie. So
he is.
If they getting him back will be key as well, and we'll have to see where they are. And they've got a couple of young defensemen that are quite good, and they've got some pieces. But in this division, I think they're going to have to scramble to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they are. I agree with that, and they have but like I said before, this division is weak in goal compared to the other three divisions, and they have one of the. If Bishop is healthy, they have one of the better. They may have the second best tandem in this division, like as far as tandems go.
Right, but it's beginning. You're beginning to get the the feeling. I mean, we don't know the specifics of the injury with Bishop. It's been speculated it's a groin situation. If that's the case, and we expect Khudobin to come back and be the starter, then a lot of onus goes on Jake Ottinger, their first round pick from a couple of years ago, who had a few little brief things in the playoffs. He could be a good goaltender, but it's going to be a lot of weight on a kid in his early 20s.
Right, there you go. So it looks like the three of us at least have the same 4 playoff teams, but let's get into that. And Russ will have a different one, but I'm going to start with my number 4, which is the Carolina Hurricanes, and it was tough for me. 4 and 3 are toss ups, and 2 and 1 are toss ups. So, but I'm going to say with 4, I'm going to say the Carolina Hurricanes. I really, really like what they did with Jesper Fast. Like I think that is a hell of a move for them and a great addition to an already interesting, solid team. I don't love, it's funny because as much as people love their defense and everything like that, I'm not sold on it completely. And I know they tried obviously to upgrade in goal and they didn't, right? So goal.
I absolutely hate their goaltending. Their
goaltending tandem is still a problem. And, although, I don't know if they think it is. They're number 4, Kev.
I've got the Predators, and it's not a pick that I'm particularly proud of because I'm not sold on the Predators whatsoever. Yeah. I think there's every chance that they could slide down as low as 6th. I didn't think they did enough to help their offense. They went into free agency thinking they had to change up 2 players on their top 6. There was talk that they were going to get Hoffman. They really didn't do it. They got Granlund back, and then they're going to try to fill with maybe a rookie coming up. And I love their defense still. I like the changes they made back there. I don't believe in their goaltending anymore. I think Pekka Rinne was a great goalie, but now he's gone. So now I just think they need to do more. The only reason I put him in the playoffs is I believe in David Poile. He's a good trader, and I think he'll assess after about 15 games, and he'll try to make some trades if he's got some cap space. So I think because I just don't think their offense is good enough.
I look at the Predators as the prototype of putting lipstick on a pig because really they didn't change much. They have the same goaltending on defense. They're hoping that Dante Fabro grows into a top 4 defenseman, but they add Mark Borowiecki, who's a character guy, but he's pretty much like an enforcer, bottom pairing guy, and is not going to make a ton of impact. And up front, they bring Granlund back. I like the addition of Haula because he was cheap. Nick Cousins. Okay, and they trade for Cunnin. Those are bottom 6 moves. The top 6 really didn't change. The defense core didn't change, and the goaltending didn't change. And I can't pick them to go far in the playoffs if Rinne and Saros are their goalies. But the teams below them have more flaws than they do.
This is not a great division, guys. I mean, that's right. Putting the Predators here because there really isn't anybody. And I'm putting the Predators in 3 at 3, but you guys are putting the Predators at 4 basically because there was no one that you could see that was definitely going to beat them out, right?
Yeah. Well, it still comes down to. Yeah, are Johansson and Duchesne going to play up to their ability?
And Forsberg, you got to put Forsberg in that category.
Well, Forsberg has been.
He always does.
He's inconsistent. He's streaky, but he ends up getting his goals. But he needs to play better than he did last season.
He does. I mean, those 3 players, and this is what my deal was with the Preds. I like Holla a hell of a lot more than Kyle Torres. I think that's a great upgrade in my opinion. Kyle Torres, they needed to get rid of. I didn't like them bringing back Granlund at that price. I didn't understand it very much. I'm only assuming that Poile had a very long talk with him and said, listen, we'll bring you back, but we need more. I like Luke Kunin, and not just because he sounds like he should be like a country singer, which doesn't he like Luke Kunin now on stage, but but I do like Luke Kunin, right? Luke Kunin. Right, Luke Kunin. Even then, still Luke Kunin. Come on, Luke Kunin's at the AMAs next week. I totally see that happening. But anyway, Luke Kunin, I like him too.
He'll be hitting on Taylor Swift.
He was in really this team, and yes, the goaltending. I'm with you, and I know that they have this kid in the minors, which
they love him. Yeah,
they love him. Will he see time this year? Maybe.
No, I don't think so.
No, I mean, I wouldn't at some point. I'll go with this. The two things that killed the Predators last year: one, changing coaches midway. They had a huge adjustment to make. They changed their systems midway. They really made a huge switch, and that affected, I think, the scoring. And I can't see the guys you talked about, Duchesne, Johansson, and I'm going to throw Forsberg in there, having seasons as bad as they were last year.
And let's put this out so people can understand this. And Mike, maybe you can look this up, but I think Johansson had 31 points last year.
Yeah, this is really bad. I think you can't
how can you
that bad?
How can you expect to win in the NHL with a number one center with 31 points?
It's astonishing. So he can't be that.
He was at least in the 30s. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
36. 14 goals, 22 assists in 68 games. He was a -5. That's the biggest thing. If you're a minus as a top line center, then you're matching up against other top line centers and you're getting beaten. And so that's not a good.
And he should be better. He should be better. Like the year before, what do you have? Like 50 assists?
64 points, 14 goals, 50 assists.
Yeah, he should be better. He can compete against top centers. But here's the only positive of that mess. Is Ryan Johansson, I don't know if everyone remembers this, he came out after the season and said, I got to be way better than I was this year. At least he knows. That he didn't play better. So, maybe there's some hope there. But, I just, David Poile is a very good general manager. Mm-hmm. But I just don't think that he believes that he did enough. And maybe that's all he could do. I mean, obviously he was sitting on somebody, but he didn't get him. And, he's left, the music stopped, and he had no chair. He's got money, but he had, so.
Yeah, I mean, he spent $5.5 million in cap space on Granlund and Haula. And I mean, I'll agree to your point that he's better for them than Turris. But the difference in play is not much. The best thing for them is they don't have the albatross of Turris's 4 remaining years at $6 million, and Hall is a 1-year contract. That's the best thing.
And also, having Torres in the locker room not scoring, I heard was just a negative guy. Like I would hear things about that. There was just like a real big issue. And Hall is not a negative guy, and he's not, and he's going to be pushing all the time. And he's fast, and there's going to be certain things that he's faster than Torres too. I would say. Yeah.
You brought this up, Beck, and it's a really good point too about there was probably a conversation with David Poile and Granlund, although he did play better way after the coaching change. He did play better there. But imagine the conversation is, we need you to do more, and we're going to pay you a lot less.
Right.
And that's exactly what's happening there. I think he ended up for just over $3 million or 3.7, something like that.
Here's the thing that Granlund was having that conversation, Kevin, comes after Granlund and everyone else, and no one else was going to give him that money probably either.
Well, what happened? Like it seemed like he was going to go to Columbus. Like Columbus was, they were going to get and we're going to talk about them shortly. Yeah. And I've got them third. Okay. But the thing about that is that the choice was made thinking Dubois was going to be there not only this year and next year and well beyond. Right. And now we don't know about that. But the Granlund, the Columbus was going to add forwards, and Granlund was a guy that, I heard he wanted to play there. He didn't want to play center, so he was happy that Max Domi went there and was going to be their center.
Yeah.
And he said, I just want to play the wing. I can score for you. And then boom, they didn't get him. They didn't get Hoffman. They didn't get anybody. So
yeah. And both Nashville and Columbus were sitting there with money the whole time, and Columbus was clearing all kinds of cap space too. That was a good. Weird thing about Columbus was they looked like they were up to something huge. Remember? I mean, they were just dumping out cap space.
Well, they said publicly they were resisting an offer sheet for Dubois. So like we knew what their plan was. I mean, Carolina came right out and said it, but once it became clear like they were going to give a bridge deal, to him, now they've got an issue. Like I struggle with this, and I get it. They're all professionals, and they all know it's just business and all that. But I've been around long enough to know that that's true for most players, but not for everyone. The guys like Dubois was part of that young group, with Seth Jones and with Werenski and the younger players. And I bet there's a feeling there of betrayal. And we had Brian Hedger on another podcast. He's with the Columbus Post-Dispatch. He covers them, and he pointed out that Panarin and Dubois were really good friends. And what did Panarin do? He went to a much bigger market, and he's having a great time there doing his thing.
Worked out well for him.
And I wonder if that has had an influence on him as well. And so I don't know that this is going to cause a problem because. We've seen guys, Panarin is a great example. Everybody knew he was leaving, and he had a great season before he left.
He played
he played hard. He got his points and his goals, but he's a very consistent player. And Dubois, I've heard, has looked great in camp. So maybe it'll be fine, but there's going to be some hurt feelings there to be sure.
At some point, things won't be going well, and that's when we'll find out, Kevin. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing really well and scoring, everybody's going to be like, this is no problem. But at some point, you'll go on a slump or get benched by Torts in a period or whatever. Something will happen, and that's when we're going to find out what's real and what's not. I think it's just that kind of situation. When I started with Columbus, for me, I started writing with them in third, and then I continued writing. So, but they're not who I have in third. So, who do you have in third, Mike?
In third, I have Carolina. And with Carolina, like I said, I said when you were talking about them before, I think their goaltending is not playoff caliber, but they'll make the playoffs because everybody else is good. I think their defense is probably second only to Tampa Bay in the division. Depth wise, I don't like Jake Gardner, but we're probably going to add Jake Bean to that group. He was the AHL.
Would you take Columbus's defense over Carolina's defense?
I like the top two. The top two is the best in the division, but after that, I think it's sort of pedestrian. I mean, it's David Savard and Gavrikov, and I mean it's good, but it's not. You're talking to Hamilton, Slavin, Shea, Pesci. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't
put them above Columbus's defense at all.
Well, like I said, I'm talking. If you're talking top pairing, Columbus is probably the best in the division. Could say Hedman and whoever is the best in the division. The second, but I'm talking about the entire defense, and their entire defense. Yeah. Carolina is, I think, second only to Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. Forward wise, I'm going to be very curious to see what Trocheck is after coming at the end of the year last year. Aho had a great season. Jordan Stahl starting to get old. And Svechnikov is coming off an injury, but he's a great player. And you have to mention this. There continue to be persistent rumors about Carolina being interested in Patrick Laine. And the rumor out there that's been reported by David Pagnotta and a few people is Brett Pesci and Martin Neckish. If they all of a sudden add Laine, and, we've had this argument, Laine is a great complementary player. He's not a core player. But if he goes to Carolina and he's on the wing with Aho, that's a difference maker. That would be a monumental deal.
I don't see him going to Carolina.
Well, I'm just saying that's the rumor out there.
Me neither. Yeah, I don't see him going either. I think it's just going to be too much money for
Carolina.
It's not. You're not like going to like a really big like Laine wants to be in the spotlight. Carolina's not a spotlight team.
Yeah. No, I've got Carolina second, obviously, because I think we all have Tampa.
I don't.
You don't have Tampa one?
I don't have Tampa one, but
I have Columbus two. And again, their goaltending is great. The Jones and Werenski are fantastic. Where I question them is I don't know whether the fit of Max Domi with Tortorella is going to work. I mean, yeah, that's a big. I mean, Max Domi is a guy who wants to fly, who wants to score, and we know that's not what Tortorella wants. And I really wonder also about what this thing with Dubois is, if it's going to infect the team, for lack of a better term. I like the additions that they made. I like bringing in Mikko Koivu. I like Grigorenko from the KHL. So they're a deeper team than they were last year. I don't think they're as good defensively because they traded Ryan Murray, but they're still going to work Seth Jones and Werenski and Savard to death. But they're second in my mind, but they're not as good as Tampa.
So you've got Carolina too. I've got Tampa too, and this is the thing. Here's the thing about this. Of course, originally I had Tampa 1. I had Columbus 3, but I'm gonna just kill. Obviously, I have Columbus 1. But here's my thinking on this. I started off with Columbus 3, and I was writing about Columbus. And the more I wrote about them, the more I'm like, yeah, you know what? They're better than I think they are. They did this. They did this. I kept moving them up, and then eventually I'm like, okay, so it's Columbus or Tampa. Tampa won a Stanley Cup. That's exciting. They're going to be a force that could win another Stanley Cup for sure. Are they going to be up for winning this division without? I mean, we know that Kucherov is gone, but that's not a problem, right? Because they've got Stamkos. Right? Does that bother anyone else? When I mean, like Stamkos,
they're on shift work.
What if Stamkos doesn't work out? I mean, that's possible. It's possible that Stamkos can't play. So then you don't have Kucherov or Stamkos. And you also don't have, some of the guys you traded away recently.
Well, Kevin,
just won a Stanley Cup. So how much inspiration is there to win? They're also not going to be worrying about not making the playoffs. Tampa's making the playoffs in this division. There's no two ways about it. So how much are they going to be putting into the regular season? That's
Kevin, I'm more worried about Stamkos' not stamina, but his durability, because
right.
That's been his problem the last few years. But it's nice that this team can here's one superstar, he can't play this year, so the other superstar comes in and fills his spot.
Yeah, and I know Stamkos healthy. I understand that. I'm not saying
Killorn is still there. Johnson is still there. Their depth is Sorelli. I mean, they're just so deep. And they've got Hedman. They have the best goalie in the league. I just don't see them not winning. We always talk about motivation and stuff, but a short season as well. It's not the 82, which I think makes it more difficult, especially after you won a cup. You've gone later, so 56 is a bit of a break for them, I think. So I just don't see them not finishing first, just because they have so much talent. And they're just up and down too, and so
another ton of them. And they're deep as could be. They've got prospects galore. They've got all kinds of things. There's no question about it, right? They have all those things. But do they have the motivation to win this division versus Columbus, who I think has a little more motivation and a little bit more. I also really like the Columbus Blue Jackets goaltending tandem a lot. Like, I think they've got two, and I like. Obviously, Tampa's got the best goalie in the league, but do they have the second? I mean, their backup, is he going to?
Yeah, but Vasilevsky's young. He'll play more than most goalies, number one goalies will. So
he will, but I'm glad Stamkos is healthy. I hope he plays 56 games and scores 85 points. But I'm not gonna. But I would rather, if you wanted to tell me the one guy I'd rather risk a season on, Stamkos being healthy or Kucherov being healthy, I'd rather Stamkos be out and Kucherov be in. Kucherov out.
Unfortunately, they don't have that option.
Have that option. But Kucherov out. If Stamkos is one hit away from who knows, So to me, and Stamkos is, I don't know. I think you got to look at this season as like Kucherov and Stamkos to a degree, but you have to. I ask you right now, if Stamkos gets hurt in the first couple, do you suddenly see Tampa as a second place team?
I mean, I'll yield to your point that they may not have the motivation there to win the division, but I just think talent-wise, they're so much more complete than Columbus. I mean, is Columbus going to go, balls out to win the division because when they know that they're going to be in the top four? It really doesn't matter. I mean, these teams are going to compile points because they're playing against, how many points they're going to get out of Chicago and out of Detroit and out of Dallas with the weekend. I mean,
for sure. But Tortorella is not one. Tortorella is going to have them go. balls out, to use your term.
Yeah, but the thing about it is I just don't think Columbus is deep enough.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I like Columbus. I mean, I obviously have them up in a.
Right.
I believe in Tortorella. I thought Tortorella got more out of that team given all the injuries than they had. But I do not. I should live in Montreal, but I don't like Max Domi at center.
Yeah.
I think he's a winger. I just don't think that in this NHL that he's there has the right frame to be a top center. I think he's a better player on the wing, and so I think they've got still a hole at center, and we don't know what's going to happen with Dubois. How this is all going to work out. What's going to happen between he and Tortorella during the season. For all those reasons, I just can't see him being better than Tampa. But mostly, I can't see him better than Tampa because of Tampa. It's just so deep. They
are crazy deep. I agree with that. I with Dubois, I'm going to go on the benefit. I mean, it's possible that could be a disaster. I agree with that. There's no two ways about that. That the coach and he probably don't get along. You're going to see all kinds of issues there. But at the same time, I like the fact that the guy signed a bridge deal for 2 years, and he's not, so you're not having an issue where he's going in. He did agree to stay there. He's there for a bit. He's going to be there. He's done. As much as we know he wants to get out, he did sign a bridge deal there for 2 years.
Well, yeah, but okay. He said that he wants to stay there to basically call the dogs off of him. Right now, it's like, okay, he says he wants to stay here. He's going to play out the season. Now the pressure is off. Now the questions will stop from the reporters. But he doesn't want to be there. He's made it clear that he doesn't want to be there. And eventually, he won't be there. It's just a question of whether that bleeds into his effort as a player. And I don't think
about Columbus. Like Panarin didn't want to be there either.
Right.
Bobrovsky didn't want to be there either. But really, what at the end of the day, that media it's not really like you're calling heavy dogs off of you. I mean, they're gonna if you put up numbers, they're gonna be I don't see them pounding you. It's not like Toronto.
At a certain point, Aaron Portzline is gonna get sick and tired and asking Pierre-Luc Dubois about whether he wants to be traded.
Yeah, but X Point's a good one, Mike. It's different than Montreal and Toronto.
Sure. I agree.
As long as they're putting up points, as long as they're playing well, people are gonna forget about the Dubois thing for the time being.
Yeah, you don't have 50 people at a morning skate in Columbus.
Right.
Sorry, I'm using Toronto.
So I do feel sorry for Columbus. Like, they've had to put up with this too much.
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you, Kev. I mean, because the reality here is, Rick Nash, he left. Panarin, he left. Bobrovsky, he left. At a certain point, you have to wonder if you're the owner of that organization or the general manager of that organization and say to yourself, what can I get in terms of these guys wanting to stay here? Because every 3 or 4 years, I got to move out a superstar because he finds Columbus boring. And that's a big challenge for a GM, for Jarmo Kekalainen to have to deal with that all the time.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I don't really get it. I mean, in terms of lifestyle, Columbus is a great place, but it's obviously a college football town more than a hockey town. But Columbus, it's just nice to play there. The arena is good. Kekalainen's a quality human being, and a lot of people like playing for Tortorella. I've talked to numerous players who enjoy playing for him. They don't mind a coach being tough on them. So
And they're gonna have to deal with Dubois over the next year, and then the following year, Jones and Werenski are both up. One's an RFA with arbitration eligibility, the other one's a UFA. Yeah. And again, you might have to deal with the fact that Seth Jones doesn't want to be there. I mean, there hasn't been an indication that he said that, but if he wants to make $8-9 million, maybe Kekalainen doesn't want to pay him that much. Yeah. So.
If there is a guy you're going to pay $8 or $9 million, I think it'll be Seth Jones.
I think they will pay if they were willing to match offers to Dubois at like $7 or $8 million or whatever. They're going to pay $8 million to Jones, I think.
Yeah, I've heard too that I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that there were offer sheet discussions with him. Yeah. So
that's interesting. And that if that's why they were trying to clear space. That's
the problem they run into is. Which leads you to believe that he really didn't want to stay there because, if you take an offer sheet, you have to, you're talking about a long-term deal. So,
Yeah, no, I mean it's funny because last year Columbus was rumored to be the team that was set to offer sheet Mitch Marner. But they didn't think that there was any way that Toronto would not match. So it would have been sort of a turnaround situation where they would have been the team that would have had to fend off an offer sheet. And the other factor with Columbus is, and Dubinsky has been out for a while, so he wasn't a factor. But Gustav Nyquist, who you know well from Detroit, I don't think he's starting the season. I think he's
not
for a while, and he is a key player for them. So that's a lack of offense there.
Well. Yeah, they're going to put him in long-term IR, I think.
Yeah, probably.
So more money, yeah.
And the overall thing with this division that if I yield to X point that Tampa is not motivated to win the division, even if they don't, I just get this weird feeling around the beginning of May, Kev, that all of a sudden Nikita Kucherov will be skating with the Lightning, getting ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, let's start that conspiracy theory right now.
Tampa's winning this division in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. I feel that 100%.
No, but what I'm saying is that the strategic shoulder. I'm not saying that he didn't have a shoulder problem. But coincidentally, it was a 6-month. Maybe he comes back a little early, but I would pay bottom dollar and in a bed, lay down money that Kucherov will be skating with them the last week of the regular season and will be in the lineup for game 1 or game 2 of the playoffs.
Hard to, it's just, yeah. I mean, it is like, the appearance of evil to me, but we'll see what happens. It used to be the appearance of evil in the NHL was a problem, but it doesn't feel that way anymore.
Can I just mention this to nothing to do with the division, but just reported by Chris Johnston from Sportsnet. The Maple, everybody's playing their scrimmages this weekend. Shaking off the cobwebs before the start of the regular season next Wednesday. The Maple Leafs power play. A few years ago, this would have been phenomenal. I don't know how good it's going to be now. Power play number 1: Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, Joe Thornton, Wayne Simmons, and Morgan Riley.
There you go. Yeah, wow. That would have been pretty something.
Wayne Simmons start playing in front of the net.
Yeah.
Thornton at the side of the net distributing. I mean,
there's a pain in the ass in front of the net, and that is going to be fun for. I mean, he is definitely. I don't blame him for doing that at all because. With all those, all that firepower out there, and you're a goalie, you got to deal with Simmons. Even if he's not a threat to score, he's going to make your life living hell there. So you're gonna have to looking around him. He's very good at getting in position. Yeah.
What this does is move John Tavares and Nylander down to the second power play. So the
second power play, which is good. I mean, they need that obviously. So. No, it's good. That there's a lot of exciting things I'm looking forward to like that, over the next couple of weeks here that we're going to see when we're going to see how these teams are going to play out.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the North Division on Monday. We have John Shannon formerly of Sportsnet and joining the show along with Pete Tessier, and then on Tuesday we'll talk about the East Division.
The best division, in my opinion. The East Division is crazy good. That division is going to be really hard to make the playoffs in. All right, well, thank you, Kevin. Have a good weekend, folks. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We want to thank